Hey everyone, it's Doug the Retirement Guy back with another strong video for you. The best 7 top income ETFs for 2026. I've been working on this fund for a little bit of time, putting the information together, kind of make sure what's going to work well when we get to our top incomes. As you know, my 3 bucket system, we're always looking for that income bucket, which is about 65% of our portfolio size. So I wanted to see which ones are really at the 6 month mark, basically halfway through the year. Want to see which ones have been doing the best, who's still holding off doing what they're doing, and just see which, if I have to do any rebalancing or anything in my portfolio. And this is a great time to do it. So before we kick off, I got to do a shout out to all of our Patreon supporters, all our YouTube subscribers. Thank you so much. If you're not a subscriber, boy, you're missing out. Hit that subscribe button. We got well over 40,000 between my two channels, about 45,000 already subscribers. So we just kind of keep pumping out the information, giving you what the good inside and outside is, and help you along. And if you want to support the channel, don't be afraid. Look down in the description. You'll see a spot there that says Patreon. You can always click on that and join in, get additional information behind the scenes. Let's get into today's video, the best 7 top income ETFs. So the big question comes into this: why the highest yield isn't always the best fund, especially in retirement? Well, high yields look exciting, but it's actually, the question will be, are you making money with it? Because when you look at this, the high yield only view, you may have some 40% distribution yields out there, and I'm going to show you one. But here's the thing, it looks great on paper, but when investors pile in chasing those kind of numbers, you're going to miss something. That 40% yield, a lot of times you get what we call NAV erosion, that the fund is slowly over a period of time just consistently dropping and dropping and dropping, that you could actually lose 45% of your portfolio, which technically would be a 5% loss across the board. So what we really look at, and the real deciding factor that I use across the board, it's always kind of the first number I look at when I'm looking at a fund, and that is the total return view. You want to look at the income, plus you want to look at what the NAV is doing. Is the NAV stable? Is it questionable? Then you want to look at how is it generating income, and are you growing your NAV? And that's what total returns can actually tell you once you understand how to look at a total return and understand what's coming on. So I'm going to rank these really by what matters: income, NAV stability, total returns, tax treatments, and how does it really fit in a retirement package. But before I go any farther, I do have to do the important disclaimer. And this presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing here constitutes personal finance advice or recommendations to buy, sell any security. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Always contact a qualified financial professional before making those investment decisions. So here's what I wanted to do. I want to show you my 5 rankings that I used for this criteria, how we separate the real income champs from the yield traps that are out there. First, distribution yield. Yep, it's going to be number 1. We're going to look at distribution yield to see how much income a fund is actually generating. We're going to take a look at the NAV trend. Is it holding value or is it really eroding? Then, and this probably, as I've always said, is number 1, but you got to get the number 1 and 2 before you can do 3, and that is a total return. How's the income plus the price changes, growth or no growth, and just to give you a total package of what's actually the fund doing, and we'll explain to you how we do that. And then number 4 is the tax efficiency. Are they using return of capital? Are they doing the 1256 contracts? Are they doing ordinary income? And some of them we actually, I could go on a list instead of just 7. I could go on a list probably 20, 25 different funds. But some of them were kicked off just strictly because of ordinary income. And I know you guys are going to put a lot of comments on why you didn't use this fund or that fund. And I'm happy to have you do that, and I'll explain to you where it's at. And then number 5 is, how does it fit in retirement? Is it a core product? Is it a satellite? Or a speculative? For me, when I'm going into my 3 bucket system, my income bucket is a big one. is I'm going to have some core products, and then I'm going to put some satellites out there, kind of like called my income boosters. And then speculative, I'm not much in that speculative side, but there's a lot of people who are. So that gives you the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step of how we're going to rate these things, where we're going to sit, and move on from there. Now, the first one I'm going to give you, I'm going to call it as an honorable mention, and that is going to be CHPY, CHPY. I have no problem with this fund. I am not going to beat down yield max. I'm not going to say this didn't make the list, but I'll tell you why it didn't make my top 7. Is the options, income, and the sector, the semiconductors. This fund, as I told you earlier, is 45% distribution yield. It's the highest that I have on this complete list. It is extremely aggressive. To me, this would only be what classify right off bat as a satellite only, not a core holding. It's a satellite only. So this would be kind of what I would call a booster. I want a boost in my income, which CHPY does very well. But it is a high volatility fund. That sector is a concentrated risk. It does have a massive income potential, and it's strong in the hot semiconductor cycles. How long that cycle will last, we don't know. Maybe, could be 1, 2, 3 years. We don't know. The cons, the NAV is variable. When the semiconductors roll over, the income reliability depends on the sector momentum. So what you're going to see this thing is you're going to have some big days, strong drop-off days, and come around. So there's a lot of volatility, and the NAV will be adjusting on a regular basis. Now, on our other channel, we have this in our weekly, because it is a weekly payer. We have this in our weekly challenge that we put $10,000 into, and we've been tracking it for now 26 weeks already. So one of these things that we know a lot about CHPY behind the scenes. Now, I want to say this is not your boring retirement income fund. Big income, definitely. But I would not build my retirement paycheck around a concentrated semiconductor option fund like CHPY. Okay? I would want to make sure I have core before I ever look at satellite. Again, not knocking CHPY. It's done a great job. And I'll tell you straight out, 74.91% total return is very, very, very impressive. Okay? So it's telling us what? You take the 45%, here's your first lesson, you take that 45% distribution yield, subtract that from your total return number. And what's that really going to tell you? There's realistically, about a 30% difference between the two. That means you got about a 30% growth over the past 12 months of the particular fund. So very critical, that starts with the NAV. Is the NAV doing well? If you're having a 30% growth and a 45% yield, definitely strong numbers. So this is how you use the total return to tell you right off the bat how healthy a fund is. If I have that plus the yield, I can tell you really what's happening across the board. Now let's get into those top 7. So let's start in the package at number 7, TDAQ, the Tap Alpha Innovation, which is better known for the NASDAQ 100, Growth and Daily Income ETF. Now this fund I want to start right off with. The distribution yield that they're forecasting out is about 16%. Now the 12.21% number I put on there is actually the year-to-date yield so far. So you can see in the first 6 months they've done a very, very good job of hitting their margins, hitting their numbers. So no reason why we won't see this grow to about that 16%. Now the NAV trend is very positive, and it has a solid total return, which I'll cover here shortly. But this is actually on my watch list, and I want to say that right up front. This is on my watch list because my rule of thumb has always been 6 to 12 months before I'll actually invest heavily into a particular fund. Now on this one here, it's kind of, I broke some of the rules a little bit. I did buy into TDAQ. I have invested into this. And the reason for I did is kind of like a kid at Christmas. Are you going to go peek at some gifts? Are you looking at things? And I've kept taking a look at this over and over and over, and I'd buy at certain dips. I had certain mark that I put out there. If we get to this mark, I'll buy a little bit, and then the next time it hits, I'll buy a little more. So I've slowly added to my portfolio, but after 12 months, then I think I'll have a good history, we'll have a good run, and then we'll be able to make some good decisions of what we're going to do with this one. But I really truly think that this could possibly be a a core piece of it. But right now, I'm going to classify as a satellite. Now, here's the thing: the daily income via those 0-day to expiration, 0 DTE option premiums. Now, I want to clarify this. Daily income is not that they're paying distributions every single day. What they're actually doing is they're able to put out every day their new options with that 0 DT expiration. So they're putting them out in the first thing in the morning. At the end of the night, they're done. They can change the direction tomorrow morning if the market's going up, the market's going down, what they see what's going all the way around. They can adjust on the fly. While most companies are putting out there a monthly package, or sometimes they're doing weekly, these guys took it to the monthly, or to the daily, excuse me. So overall, I'm pleased with this fund. The pros onto it: has an attractive 16% year the yield, has a positive price appreciation, has an innovation on that daily income approach. The cons is that short history. Does not have enough track history, so I don't know what's going to happen in the untested markets and the bear markets. And that 0 DTE strategy is very complex. So I want to see them in good, bad markets. We've seen them in some bull markets already. We've seen this choppy market that we're currently in, and I want to see them in some bear markets before I really can sit here and say, oh yeah, this is a core and we're walking all the way through. But when we take a look at total returns, and this is why I put this up there, total return 14.28%. Now that's year to date so far. So you take the 12.21 from that, you can see you got about a 2% right now, about a 2% in the growth side. Now I know if you go take a look at the growth package on any of the reports now, because that number is going to change on a daily basis, up and down. But overall, the whole period of time, they're really realistically right in about a 2% gain. Now, TDAQ may become one of the better income ETFs over time, but I definitely feel it needs some history before testing it in some real retirement income side of it. So very, very promising on my end. Now, number 6 is a fund that does not get enough notice. I don't think a lot of people know about it or understand it. We just did a video about 3 days ago on the overlay shares and the overlay strategy, how it all works. So I'm not going to get into this well, but if you want, you can always go back and watch that video. But OVL, the overlay shares, large cap equity, really dials into more like the NASDAQ 100 of using large cap companies. Now, this one here with a distribution of 6.5% yield, probably one of the lowest that I have in this top 7 group, but very, very strong NAV and very strong total return. This one I do classify as a core. I would buy and hold this thing in my core account in my retirement. Now, a lot of people ask me, where do you put this? As your income side, or are you putting this in your growth side? And I personally would put this in my growth side. And I'll tell you why, because right off the bat, look at the numbers. If you have 26.04% total return, you take 6.5% off of that, you're really looking at a high 19% into the growth side of things. This is why 6.5 is okay in an income fund, but I prefer this in a growth fund, and actually take that 6.5 and roll, 2 things. One, put the money on the side. If I need more income, I always have 6.5 sitting there over my growth side. But the other side is, if I don't, I take that 6.5 and roll it back in there so that we get a full 26% return across the board, and just keep dripping that money back in, growing and growing even more. So the pros of this one is the growth and income blend in one fund. It avoids the full upside cap of traditional covered calls, which is why we see such a good growth side of it. And it's S&P 500 style that's a broad market exposure. Now, large caps, that's why I said I always put it against the NASDAQ. They will talk that they want to be the S&P 500. I really like it towards the QQQ packages, strictly because we're dealing with large caps. They have another fund that's QVS, which is a small cap, and I put that more towards the S&P 500. That's just me personally. You guys all may say I'm right, wrong, or indifferent, but and I love to hear that. Leave a comment down below if you think I am right, wrong, or indifferent. The cons of this one, though, is that lower yield compared to others on the list. So I'm not real. This is again, I know we said this was going to be an income piece. It is, but I really think you want to put this in your growth side in my situation. For retirees who want that S&P style exposure, income, and less upside limitations than traditional cover calls, OVL deserves a serious look across the board. So now at number 5, GPIX, the Goldman Sachs S&P 500 Premium Income ETF. Now this thing has about an 8 to 9% distribution yield. Now it's lower on the list, but don't let it stop you here. It has a very strong growth engine working with that S&P 500 to help you grow your portfolio. Very strong growth compensates for that lower yield. Now, one of the biggest advantages of this thing is that 0.29% expense ratio, which comes in very, very handy if you're planning on holding this for long, long periods of time. That can actually save you thousands of dollars. Now, the strategy, the S&P 500 exposure with that flexible dynamic options overlay, that their coverage is adjustable from 25 to 75% of the portfolio being covered in the option strategy. It preserves more of the upside than the traditional cover call ETF. So basically a quick explanation to it. If the market's having a bull run, that things are going up high and quick, they will back off and say only 25% of the portfolio will be into the options to create income, letting 75% of the portfolio run wild to grow, grow, grow. Now, when the market gets into that bear market and things are really tightening up, they'll take and do 75% to generate maximum income. So you'll actually see the income numbers rise and your growth numbers flatten out when they do such an application. But they can play anywhere between this 25 to 75 range. That's what makes the Goldman Sachs program so very interesting and so strong out there. So it's one of the very, very interesting pieces. The pros of this thing is that S&P growth exposure. And I really want to say Goldman Sachs is a fund that is growth first, income second, even having some very good numbers in that distribution yield. But it's really designed for growth first. Monthly income distributions and that flexible coverage, more upside potential. The cons is the lower yield, of course, and it's less tax clean than in taxable accounts. They do use some ROC, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but it's for retirement fit, the growth and income. I put it on there a reason. It's more growth to the income. It's best suited if you're in a tax shelter account like an IRA or a Roth. So just don't judge an income ETF by yield alone. A lower yield fund with better growth may outperform a higher yield fund that's slowly losing its NAV. Remember that. When we take a look at the total return numbers, again, we're going to take 8 from 21. We're talking what? 13? We're talking about 13 to 14% in growth side of it. So together, these are very, very strong pieces. And I've talked to people many times. If I put this in my growth fund, do you think I'm wrong? No. If I put it in my income fund, do you think I'm wrong? No. You can use this accordingly. How do you want to use it? And it's all how you want to build your portfolio. This one would be truthfully a core in either one of my growth or income packages. Number 4. Now this gets into the NEOS family, and this is the Russell 2000 High Income ETF, IWMI. This fund here, again, did a video onto it showing what the Russell's been doing. The small caps have been just going crazy lately. So very, very strong pieces. They do the options on the Russell 2000, and they use the Section 1256 contracts for their tax harvesting with ROC distribution. So the huge package for tax side of it. 14% yield and distribution is probably one of the highest that I have on the list this time. A positive NAV trend, very, very strong total return. And this thing is high tax efficiency. When we talk NEOs, they talk taxes. Okay. One of the biggest things that they believe in so strongly is not how much money we make you, it's how much money you get to keep. The Section 1256 contracts, if you're not familiar with it, don't matter how long you held the fund, 60% of your distribution will be long-term capital gains, 40% short-term, lowering your tax bill tremendously. Then they use a high ROC, which defers the taxes on cost basis farther down the road. A lot of people don't know about the ROC part of it, but it is a very, very big part. They also use some tax harvesting, which is when they have a particular fund or a particular stock in the fund that is going negative, they will sell it off. And then sometimes they'll buy it right back because they're harvesting for tax purposes only. This is a very diversified fund with the small caps there all over the place onto it. Very strong support piece. It's not a premium core though. This will probably shock some people. I don't put this as a premium core. This is actually one of my strongest satellites I would use. You know, taking it, boosting my stuff up with that 14%. So the pros of it is that Russell 2000, the diversification of those small caps. Very strong 14% yield, very strong tax efficiency if you're using this in a brokerage fund. And the balance of the S&P and the NASDAQ heavy portfolios, this is a nice balancer between them. That's why I say it's a nice satellite. It's probably one step off of being a core. But the small caps mean more volatility, which is always critical. This does have a little bit shorter track record and a higher downside in bad markets. So I'm just always cautious with that with this one. Take a look at what we're talking about. 34.50% total return. Take the 14 off of it. You're talking about a 20% growth package out of it. So it's been, like I said, very, very strong. Now, IWMI is not necessarily the first fund I would build around, but it could be a very strong support piece, especially as I said with the S&P and the NASDAQ funds around it. This just smooths the edges off the other two. So this is not something I walk away from. That's why it's high up there in number 4. It's just a really strong piece in my opinion. Now at number 3, GPIQ. The Goldman Sachs NASDAQ 100 Core Premium Income ETF. Now, just like I talked earlier about the Goldman Sachs, their yields are going to be smaller, 9 to 10% on this one. Okay, they do have strong NASDAQ growth engine. They have a strong growth with the lower yield, and they have the lowest expense ratios at 0.29%. So your money, if you're holding again long term, which is what these would be, you're going to make more money down the road with a 0.29 versus a 0.068 or anything like that you see of other funds. Now the pros of this one, the NASDAQ 100 growth exposure, the monthly income distributions, and that flexibility coverage, which we talked earlier, and I'll go over it real quick one more again because they do the identical with the NASDAQ. They have that 25-75 adjustable coverage in good times, bad times, depending on what market they want to use, and that preserves the upside of traditional covered call ETFs. Now the con is definitely going to be the lower yield that's on the list, and it's a less tax clean, using a little more ROC. They do have some 1256 contracts, but not a lot. So realistically, you best to put this in an IRA or a Roth. Again, I go back and say the Goldman Sachs is a growth plus income package, but I really tell you straight out, do not judge this by the income only. You got to look at all the pieces of the puzzle together. When you take a look at the yield, right now you're talking a total return. That means you're getting about anywhere between 19 and 20% growth of a fund, plus still getting 9 to 10% in a distribution. So this one here, I actually put this as my income portion in my income bucket, and this is actually one of my core pieces in my income bucket to help all the way work around. Good growth in an income bucket, plus I say good yield as well of 9 to 10%. Especially when I tell you what you mix it with the one we just looked at, IWMI. I'm going to be able to boost this up a little bit, plus my satellites, to get my numbers higher. So I don't always just sit here and say, oh man, I want 10, 12, 14%. I'm willing to take this because of the growth package and everything else, what makes it so strong and safe and secure as I'm moving down the road. Hey guys, before we get to the next number 2 and number 1, I want to just give you a heads up here. Our Retirement Made Easy Living on Dividends coffee mug. This is what I do to support this channel. Okay, we got Patreon, who helps us support us. I appreciate everyone who does participate in that. But I also made it simpler for other people too. As you want, wake up in the morning, you want a nice cup of coffee. You can always remind yourself about Retirement Made Easy, Living on the Dividends coffee mug. They're only $8.99 plus the shipping. You can easily hit the QR code, or you can definitely go down in the description down below and see a link down below of that one. It's a great little fun thing for little dollars. Help support the channel. I appreciate if you have. I know a lot of people have bought this. We're on our 4th load of cups already. I'm excited of how you guys have really supported the channel, and thank you so much for it. But if you haven't, hey, it's a great time to do it. At number 2, SPYI, the NEOS S&P 500 High Income ETF. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, this is one of my core holdings. I have very limited IRA and Roth part of it, kind of some of the decisions I made a long time ago. But in my brokerage account, I'm heavily into SPYI. I just love what they do. Nice 12% yield, positive NAV trend, very extremely high tax efficiency. We talked about that with IWMI. Same thing here. Very, very strong tax efficiency. Now the expense ratio, yep, you can argue with me what you want with the expense ratio of 0.68%, but for everything that they do, I am willing to pay that little extra for it. That's why I have the Goldman Sachs there as well. But this one here, as I continue to say, is my S&P 500 hardcore. It's in my income fund across the board. S&P 500 exposure with the option strategy, the 1256 contracts, and the ROC. You can't lose in this package. And if you don't understand what ROC is, we've got a couple different videos out there, and we just did one on retirement from a lot of people asked about. So I put that out there as well. Don't be afraid to click on that one and see it. But the strengths of this one is that broad S&P 500 exposure with the monthly distributions and that tax efficiency. It's not the highest yield and it's not the highest total return on the list, but you can't be number 1 on everything to basically to win a whole race across the board, because everyone will come in and do something better than you do. But across the board on NEOS, I can't say they do anything bad. They do everything very, very well and right where we need it for retirees. I'm not looking at this fund because it looks great for 3 months. SPYI is kind of the fund that helps generate income while keeping your portfolio from falling apart. That's really what it's all about. Now we do our simple math. You will see this with NEOS. 12% yield and from an 18%, so we're talking about a 6% growth on the fund. Now this is the opposite of Goldman Sachs, and this is why I say they work so well together. Goldman Sachs is going to give me big growth with a smaller income. These guys are my income engines with a smaller growth. That's why you put 2 and 2 together to get both out of the same package. Number 1, you've heard me talk about this one many, many times, and I just truly think this is the right package. At number 1, QQQI. Again, the NEOS package. This is the top pick. I've just been watching this all year long. It is right in line. 14% yield. It has that high section 1256 in the ROC. Has that 0.68 annual expense ratio. Positive NAV trend. This is my balance, what I call my balanced core piece. It gives me great income, great growth, great tax awareness, handles everything that I really need. Now, the income, definitely with GPIQ, the people who will question this, is, GPIQ gives me, the growth, but it does not compete in that yield, 14.9%. Okay, so I'm going to take, that's why I said earlier, I'll take the 14% here. I'll take the growth from Goldman Sachs, put these two together and really make a Doug sandwich that I got growth and income both from 2 separate funds working well together. So more growth potential than the legacy covered of call funds, and I use it in the best combo across the board. So QQQI wins because it gives me the retirement investment a strong balance of income growth and tax efficiency across the board. Now we take a look again, 23 to 14, so about a 9% growth across the board. So when we give you the final rankings and the recap, I give you all the way through. Starting back off, TDAQ 16%, again, high yield, positive NAV, solid total return, and the tax efficiency varies primarily from ROC. It's on my watch list. QVL is a core piece. The yield is not as strong as it want to be, but I really put it across the board. GPIX at number 5, IWMI at number 4, GPIQ at number 3, and then the NEOS packages with the SPYI and QQQI across the board. So this is what I give to you guys. This is how I really put the list together to give you a good idea to it. So retirement is not just about getting paid today. It's about making sure the paycheck can last time and time again. So yield alone is not enough. You need the NAV and the total return that really matters, and build income that will last. Guys, let me know. You can join our conversation over on Patreon if you want. You can join for free. I don't really sit there and nag everybody to pay for everything getting on there. You can get on for free. You get some additional information there. But if you support the channel, there's even more stuff you can get. But drop me a comment. What do you think about our top 7? How does it all fit? Do you agree with QQQI's number 1? Would you rank SPYI higher, or do you think Chippy should have made the list? But I'll just tell you straight out, this is how I did it. Let me know. If you're not a subscriber, hit that, and also give me a like on that channel. And most of all, remember, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is the coffee mug. We'll see you next time.